the Young Turks mentors.
Our next speaker, along with his co-founder Aprameya Radhakrishnan, started Taxi for Sure in 2011 from a 100 square feet rooftop terrace office in JP Nagar. Few years later, in that very same office, he signed over his company to Ola Cabs for $200 million. His Twitter ID now says, doing this and that and nothing much. So we've asked Raghunandan to come here and talk to us about what he's actually doing now.
I think I am in that unique position where we sold the company and we just got out from all the madness of running a company and got a lot of time to reflect on how the journey was. I'm going to talk about some of the learnings that we had. I think the first thing that I want to talk about is family, right? And I think that's very, very important. When people start up, right, people are driven by that vision, driven by that dream. They're mad, not necessarily that their family is mad too, right? And it's very, it becomes a lot bigger challenge if your family is not really bought into that story. Most of the people keep the company as a black box. And what I would really suggest is spend time. Just make the other person feel involved. My wife used to come to office at the time when I used to leave. It was around 11:30 in the night, and she used to just drive with me. And I used to crib. That's because she used to drive. But I think the biggest advantage was she realized what I was going through. One of the critical elements that most of the people don't talk about is the employee ecosystem. And that's very, very critical, right? So as Vivek rightly pointed out, you have to hire people who are smarter than you, right? And those people are going to essentially stand alongside you, and they are going to do the same thing that you have been doing. They are going to put so much into the company, right? So I used to call up my CTO at around 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning because things were not really working fine. So his wife used to essentially say, who is this Raghu? Why is he calling you at so much? Because she's the one who used to wake up and essentially tell him that Raghu is calling. I think she hated me big time, right? Right. So, and I realized that essentially he was going through a whole lot of personal crisis because of the amount of time that he used to spend in the startup. Right. So what we did was we started having this once a month movie plus dinner. And the first time when she met, she realized that, okay, Raghu is not really as evil as she thought, right? And so because my family was also involved and their family was also involved, the spouses essentially started hanging out together. They figured out that every other spouse is also feeling the same thing. They were together in it, right? And post which, things started changing differently. So whenever I used to call, she used to tell, Raghu is calling, please take up the phone. Right? It must be urgent, right? So, so the things change. So essentially, it's very, very important to get the family on board. I don't know how many people here are closer to exit or looking at an exit and things like that. But what one has to understand is, you don't build a company to sell. If you build a company to sell, after you have sold the company also, the company has to still run. The only thing that would be different is probably you may or may not be associated with the company, but the company has to still run. So the only thing is ensure that your company is not redundant in the industry that you are operating, so that you at least get an exit, right? But ensure that you are redundant within the company. Very easy to really succumb to that sense of power, sense of control, sense of making those decisions in the company, not necessarily empowering the people. So that you essentially make that you are that one-stop man for everything, man or woman, however it is, right? But let go of that, right? But so as a parting thought, ensure that the family is on board, right? So that as long as there is peace in personal life, there will be peace in professional life. I think that the sense of having that good night's sleep is the only single metric on how successful an entrepreneur you are. Thank you guys. Thanks a lot.
The last speaker for the evening, but by no means the least, Ravi Gururaj. I think the best way to describe him is that his passion is entrepreneurship. He's an evangelist of startups in the truest sense. And this evening would not have been possible without his support and without the support of NASSCOM 10,000 Startups. I'm going to ask him to come up and conclude this session for us today.
Today, what I thought I'd do is I'd share with you some examples of things I've seen outside of software that inspire me, okay? The first one, it's frugal and mundane. A couple of examples here. One is, take a look at this. This is the Arvind Eye Clinic. And this is a clinic that has figured out how to do that many cataract operations. All those people in line there are not there to visit somebody in the hospital. They're actually there to get a cataract operation today. It's very inspiring for me because, when we build software especially and we build, technology products, we have our challenges, but, they figured out how to operate on human beings really fast, efficiently, and the results they produce are amazing at a price point that is incredible. Let's take a look at the eureka moments. Sometimes you might have this. So in Korea, a lot of the highways are one lane each way, and lots of accidents happened. And for decades, they were trying to figure out how to solve this problem. Korea is heavy on manufacturing. There are a lot of trucks that take goods from the factories to the ports. And when these trucks are on the road, the car drivers behind the trucks get frustrated, and they want to overtake. And in the moment when they peak, they get hit. And that's a huge accident. And there's no easy solution to that. So more recently, Samsung came out with this idea. And this is like an everyday thing, right? They're taking 4 LCDs, and they're strapping it to the back of their trucks. And there's a camera in the front of the truck, so essentially the driver behind can actually look at what's ahead. And they can make the right move when they want to overtake. So example number 3, let me give you, I was, about to make a trip to the US. My iPhone had broken down. I called the Apple store, and I said, can you fix this now? They said, no, we don't have the part, we can't fix it. I then go to Google, search for something, and I find this guy in Koromangala. And guess what he does? His business model is unique. He buys brand new Apple products, he takes them apart into their parts, and then he resells each part for 3x what Apple charges for the product. So he's actually a guy here in Koromangala, and he's got 4 or 5 stores. He makes more profit on an Apple product than Apple does. Okay? It's unbelievable because Apple is the most valuable company on the planet. It's probably the first company that might cross the $1 trillion mark. And if anybody knows anything about Apple, they know that they make huge margins. And here's somebody who's just thought through the business model. And, he offered, I said, that's it's a small part. It's a lot of money. I said, and there were others that came in. And he said, yeah, you can go to SB Road and you can get some old part. But I sell you brand new parts, and I guarantee you these parts are brand new, right? Because that's my business model. Example 4, thinking audacious. So in China, they had this bullet train tracks, 7 of them. And they wanted to build a bridge across these. But these tracks connect 2 of the biggest cities in China. And the project manager was told, you cannot stop the trains for even a second. So they built the bridge on the side, and then they swiveled it into place. 17,000 tons. It was swiveled into place in 29 minutes. And you can see the swivel happening, and the bullet trains are flying through at 450 kilometers an hour. So for me, it calls out, obviously it's a very audacious project. Probably I can't assess the risk factor there, but it just goes to show that you can find a solution for almost everything, right? And great teamwork. It wasn't like the team that was building the bridge said, why don't you do the swivel first, and then we'll see if it works, and then we'll build the rest of the stuff, right? Now, one last thing. One of the areas where across Indian startups, we need to up the level dramatically is in design. But let me walk you through something that's, agile, fast, beautiful, very well designed. It's the Ferrari 458 Italia. So let's look at its specs. It's a fast car. It seats 2. It goes about 300 kilometers in a tank of gas. And then we take a look at, I'm sure most of you now recognize this as a Tesla. Take a look at its specs. It does 0 to 100, in the same, almost the same. I bet you couldn't tell the difference between 5.6 and 4.2 if you sat in the car. It's very comfortable as a sedan, right? It basically goes almost the same distance, if not more, on a full charge, full battery charge. That's what it costs. When I talked to the Tesla folks, they said, we didn't have to put a steering wheel. We didn't have to put a brake. We didn't have to put an accelerator. But we did that because that's the experience everybody knows. So even though this car is dramatically different, when you sat in it, you wouldn't have to rethink all of that, right? There's a nice size boot. And guess what? There's a boot on the front too. So you really got to dive in deep. Where the hell is the car, right? There's a lovely sunroof where you can turn the tint up and down so you won't have any problem with Bangalore police. They say you can't have your tinted cars. And that's the car. So, you got to take a look at what the car is. Where's the engine? It's between those two back wheels. You can't even see it. Where's the fuel tank? It's between the two wheels. I mean, that's a car redefined because somebody sat down and completely rethought the car, but at the same time, they gave you exactly the same experience you expect in today's car. I hope, you guys think different and shock everybody because that's what, great entrepreneurs do. So thank you. Thank you, Shireen. And, we hope you're back in Bangalore often.
So with that, we come to the end of the second Young Turks Mentor Program. I want to say a quick thank you to Raghunandan, who's the General Manager here at the Ritz-Carlton, for helping us put this together at very, very short notice. Thank you to all our mentors and thank you to all the startups who wrote in, who followed up on extremely tight timelines, took time out to be here. I hope this has been a good, engaging, informative evening for all of you.
The Young Turks Mentors.